my Scaredy Cats, my name is Kate from Scaredy Cat Gaming, and we are back in with a case of Distrust. Now, we left off talking to Tiny Paw, so let's see if we can make him crack. Well, I mean, we already got quite a lead, but let's see if we can get anything else. Alright, about notes. I considered telling Tiny Paw about Green's tickets to St. Louis, but if these mobsters thought that Green was about to blow town, they'd be liable to dig him an early grave. I still needed to solve my case, and for that I needed my employer alive. Maybe after it all cleared up, I'd mention Green's tickets. I must have been a lot in thought, because Tiny Paw said, "Can I get back to this already?" motioning to his pool table. What's that got to do with any of this? He asked. I tried to press him further, but got nothing from it. He sighed, apparently eager to get back to his game. Anything else? We'll do a good deed nonetheless, I repeated to Paul. Why make an old liquor slogan your password? Paul smiled. An old liquor slogan? That's rich. And here I thought you dicks were supposed to be learned. I raised a questioning brow. It's called The Drinking Song, a poem by Thomas Hardy and Ode Britt. I asked more about the poem. It's all about this man thinking we're the top of the chain and slowly understanding we aren't. All our thoughts, all of our theories amount to nothing. We're just apes floating in wide ocean of space. How can you possibly cope with that? How do we even know what we are now? But to hell with it. Take your mind off it. Have a drink. And do something good. Not a bad code if you ask me. I tilted my head, neither agreeing or disagreeing, but simply impressed by Paul's knowledge of Victorian poetry. Alright, that's enough of a lesson. Is there something else you wanted, or can I get back to this? He motioned to the billiards table. I think that is it. No, I wanted to say go. There we go. I didn't have anything else to say to him, so he cracked his knuckles, arched over the table, and resumed lining up shots. I thought about heading back down the dark stairs to the street. I was debating where to go next. Well, I wanted to go see Frankie because he had said that he had like the same spice or whatever was the same. I don't want to talk to this guy because I want to talk to you guys. The same spice as like this one wine that was in here, so I want to talk to Frankie about it. Well, you'll like this, I told him. Remember that wine you offered me? Oh, the Zinfandel you turned up your nose to? Where'd you say that grape was from? It's from here, California. Napa or Sonoma. You sure? Yes, Malone. That's the only place these grapes are grown nowadays. And not Canada, I asked. What are you swinging at? What are you swinging at, Malone? Tiny Paul had a bottle of wine that tasted the exact same. That identical spice. He said it was from Green's bootlegging source. From Vancouver. Malone, I'm telling you, he said, no wine anywhere else in the world has that spice. It ain't from Vancouver, and Green's ain't getting it cheap. I nodded. Well, you just confirmed my hunch. Green's got no source. He must be swindling Tiny Paul and the entire Ferrari gang. And I bet he'll run away with the money. Frankie let out a long whistle in disbelief. Just then the phone rang. Frankie picked up with a, hello? Right. And handed me the receiver ending, shipment. PC, he said, his excited voice crackling the speaker. Find anything on Green? I asked. Nothing, he said. I was puzzled. Then why'd you call? That's the idea. First got pinched for a brawl in the ferry building. That was in November 1920. Before that, no Connor Green anywhere around the bay. Strange, he continued. Has trouble staying out of a mess, mixed up in something nearly every week, so only appearing a few years ago. That Oakland backstory is Swiss cheese. What are you thinking? Green's got a different past? I asked. Uh-huh, he said. Guess that he just got here in 1920 and never been straight about where he's from. Wait, I said. If Connor Green was a criminal in another town, easily some cop would recognize the name and send him back home. SFPD isn't that thick. Right, Shipman agreed. If it's the same name, could be his real identity. Disappeared in another town. I thought aloud, so he might have changed lives. Is there any way to confirm that? If Green fled, the local bulls would keep looking for him, but not if they thought he died. Get these cases sometimes, where mobsters fake a death to escape a burg. Use a mangled stiff to do it, someone unrecognizable. That way they get out of town without a chase. Got any mobster deaths in 1920? I asked. A ton. Too many to look through. But narrow the search for me. A town he might be from. I could check a specific city archive. Anything in your notes that tells us where he could be from? I don't have anything that suggests where he might be from. Wait, St. Louis. Tickets to St. Louis. I found some tickets to St. Louis in Green's apartment, I told him. The missus was ruffled when I picked them up. I stayed on the telephone while Shipman used another line to call his contact to St. Louis dispatch. I was nursing a glass of gin when he got back to me. Lucky big PC. Seems there's one that fits the bill. He read aloud an article from St. Louis Post-Dispatch, dated October 8th, 1920. Gun battle at June's Diner. Gangster dead. Suspected bandit clubhouse scene of another shooting. A heated argument turned deadly Thursday, as multiple shots rang inside June's Diner on 14th Street. Suspected hideout of Egan's Rats. A man was found dead at the scene, unidentified due to gunshot wounds to his face. Police suspect he is a mobster bred the Jester, who had hired a private eye to investigate threats on his life. Last month, Chief of Police Brannon, said investigating gangster on gangster deaths was a waste of time, and that discovery of the threats leads many to believe police wouldn't look further into the case. Hold on, I said. This Bragg character had hired a private detective? Seems police are quick to forget the case, if they got a reason to think it's just gangster violence. This lines up with Green, I said. Gets better. Bragg's first name? Connor. I cursed loudly through the telephone. I continue with my theory. And your story says this Bragg was deeply indebted? So maybe Green's just waiting in San Francisco until he's got enough dough to skip town and go home. He have some bootlegging business? Shipman asked. Why would he leave that behind? No. I shook my head. His mind is complete bunk. It's local stuff, not any Canadian route he might be claiming. I didn't know why he'd pull a fast one until now. Returning Bragg to St. Louis could be huge. Swing by the station. We'll iron it all out. I agreed and slammed the receiver on its pegs. It seemed I needed to make my way back to the station. This is getting heated. So what's the news on Green? Frankie asked as I was headed up the stairs. Now it seems like I had all the details. I summarized it for him. So, the total wrap. Green isn't really Green at all. He's a Bragg. He's Bragg, the jester, a former member of Egan's Rats from St. Louis. He's Bragg? Frankie was shocked. But he's been here a while, Malone. Sure, I said, but only since 1920. He couldn't pay off his debts in Missouri, so he faked his death and moved to San Francisco. He's been longing to go back, but he needs a way to settle his score before he can show his face again. Is that where his bootlegging comes in? I gotta scratch my ear, I'm sorry, guys. Green sets up a sham rum running scheme. He bought local wine but claimed he got it at lower prices from Canada. He convinced Tiny Paul to front him a heap of cash for it. Instead of providing the wine, he's planning to skip town with Paul's money, disappearing to St. Louis with enough dough to pay back his debts. He already faked his death once, so he'll do it again here? Frankie asked. That's right. His plan is similar to the last one. Hire a detective claiming he's scared for his life, fake his death, then know the police won't bother with underground violence. Frankie looked at me with a blank stare. Seems like all the pieces fit, he said. So he just hired you as cover? I said. Seems like it. Don't worry about that, Frankie started saying, but I cut him off. I'm going to see Shipman now. I'll sleep away this mess, then come back and see you. Have a stiff drink ready, I instructed. Just be careful, Malone. Egan's Rats have a reputation. They can be ruthless. I turned and walked up the stairs. There was only one place to go. Police station. Green had hired me for cover, so that he could blow town. Shipman held the final evidence to sink that plan. I needed to get to the station. No time to talk. Gotta keep everything on the brain. I stepped in the taxicab and was consumed with my thoughts about the case. I finally caught my break, but it was a dud. I hadn't realized it, but I'd been revealing in real detective work. Once I learned it all was bunk, my mind reverted to its instant nagging. I wonder if I knew that. I wallowed in. I wonder if I was just a puppet to some two-bit mobster. I was hardly bringing much justice to anybody, which made me unsure of what exactly it was that I was doing. I supposed I was wasting my time. It all came back to the same basic premise. You're failing, my inner voice said. I began to feel nauseous in the car. My mind repeated its last thought. I'm sorry. You're failing. And then everything turned to black. As if someone had shut off all the lights. My naked arms faded into view. They emitted a soft white glow. I rubbed my eyes, willing them to focus, but without success. Between my fingers, it appeared in the distance. I could hardly see, but as the object billowed, a clarity came to me. Then I understood what it was. Lewis, it's his great coat. I floated towards it. I reached to grab the coat, which was when I saw the needles. No, not needles. Glass shards falling all around me. One piece wedged itself deep in my right elbow. I grimaced, but I was unable to make any noise or movements. But then, as suddenly as the rain had stopped. I looked upwards with caution, wary of the rain's return. But above me, I saw the great coat. It was no longer billowing. It was rigid, a shield against the terrible rain. It started falling, slowly at first, but quickly it gained speed. It came upon me and enveloped me completely. It was suffocating. I couldn't breathe. I let out a gasp. And then the light. That is really bright. I can't really read this right now. It pierced my eye sockets, hitting the back of my skull like a hammer on an anvil. I directed all my energy into my lungs and forced out a yell. That helped. Everything became quiet. I could breathe deeply. I noticed someone beside me. He gradually came into focus. Shipman showed his teeth in a big smile. I looked up at him from my laying position on a Murphy bed. He swung his leg over the chair and sat beside me. "Thought you'd never come around," he said. What happened? I tried to ask him something, but another bolt of pain raced up my elbow. All I managed was a groan. "Relax, PC. Just a few scrapes. Just a few scratches." Quite the auto crash. Flew straight from the front window. They took out a large piece of the glass from your right arm. I remembered none of that. I mumbled the words auto crash to myself. I wondered how bad the accident must have been. Shipman removed a flask from his pocket, unscrewed the top, and handed it to me. "Not the best hooch, but might get rid of the banging in your head." I took a swig. I closed my eyes and sighed a deep breath as its warmth burned on my throat. I know modern medicine doubts it, but the gulp of moonshine helped. I went to give the flask back to Shipman, but he put a hand to stop me. "Hang on to it. Might need another swig after what I'm about to tell you." I propped myself up on my left shoulder to listen. About Green's case. The two of us figured he was going to fake his own death. Shipman clicked his tongue to his teeth and looked towards the floor. "That ain't happening. Last night, Connor Green was shot through the heart twice." "What?" I shouted. The exclamation was impulsive. I swung my legs quickly around and sat at the edge of the bed. My headache had suddenly vanished. "Whoa there," Shipman said. "Look, been here with you all night," he added quickly. "And that chair beside the bed? Just telephoned the station to check in. That's the rap they gave me. Told me that I'd known from you, and they said they'd chase it up." "How do you know it was him?" Another involuntary question. I was running on instinct. "PC, faking your death involves a mangled body. Shot through the chest? His face is still intact. However, Green was planning on doing, he didn't get that far. And he looked it up. He doesn't have a twin. That would be too easy," Shipman grinned. "Green hired you for this case," he continued. "Gives you every right to follow it up if you want. That said, he was likely taking you for a ride. Wouldn't blame you if you want to drop it. But I'd like your help, PC. You know the case. Could use your head, even if it's a little bumped. Once you're feeling better, I'll be at the station. Come find me there." Shipman stood up and cracked his back. "Maybe I'll catch some shut-eye on top of my desk, too. Sure beats that chair you got." He turned and walked out. I stood up from the creaking bed and surveyed the cluttered apartment. Packaged cigarettes were the latest trend, but I still preferred to roll my own. The ashtray was evidence that I was practiced skill. I suppose I had a lot of free time back then. The apartment was already cramped, with a Murphy bed was up. With it down, I could barely squeeze through the living room. The cat slept on the foot of the bed. I scratched behind his ear, and he seemed to like that. Newspaper was flopped on the floor, its headline about the death of Lenin, leader of the Red Menace sweeping Russia. It seemed the Bolsheviks had lost their head. All of these are the same except for that one. Let me see my notes. I stared at the doorway and took a deep breath. I suppose I owed Shipman enough to help solve the case, even if Green had given me the runaround. After all, what type of detective would leave a case half solved? There was only one place to go, the police station. Although Green had just been using me, his life had apparently been in danger all along. I resolved to find his killer. I headed to the North Beach station for any information Shipman could give me before starting the case. So I got in a car accident. I gave my address and slouched in the back seat of the taxicab. I thought a good way to pass the journey might be to chat with the driver. No, thank you. I looked out the window until we reached my destination. I don't want to talk to anybody right now. Okay, the headquarters building dominated the corner of Kearny and Washington in Chinatown, rebuilt after the 1906 earthquake. I've already read that part. I stepped out of the taxicab and walked through the station doors, ready to chase any leads on Green, but standing in front of me as I entered, bawling her eyes from her sockets, was Miss Green. She saw me and brought her wailing closer. Malone, she exhaled through her sobbing. You were working for my husband. What happened? Her breathing obscured her next sentences, but I got the general idea. I told her I knew as little about the matter as she did, but that I was looking into it, and I was sure the officers were doing their best. She begged me to help them, again drowning most of her sentences with her sobbing. I promised I would try. She took a slow inhale, raised her chest, and walked out of the station. When she was out of sight, Fred Grant came around the corner and let out a snort. Grant was another investigator for the SFPD. I studied his ruddy face. Strewn with broken capillaries that it gave the impression of a map of streams. A cigar often poked through his mouth, hardening his jaw and twisting his face into a scowl. I suppose that was an appropriate look for a man who enjoyed his bribes in liquid form. Grant had never been a supporter of policewomen, and he was no fan of mine. He lightened the cigar and said, "The widow seemed pretty torn up about him. You really helping her out?" It wasn't his place to know. I said I was. He's not a fan of mine, so why would I associate with him? It wasn't his place to know. So I just stared at him. Well, alright, if you ain't gonna talk, then I should be on my way. Last thing I gotta do is head to the tin spoon, then toss this in the freezer. That meant he was about to close the case cold. He smiled as though he was glad to do it. I raised a questioning brow. You aren't chasing it up? I asked. He looked appalled that I would even ask. We've got more to deal with than some dead gangsta. The captain doesn't care about crap like this, so long as it's not spreading too far. And what about the girl? What does she suspect? What does she expect? He asked. This board goes and marries an Irishman? Peh! Probably killed by one of his own, or some dago. All those bums running together. I gave him a frown, to which he responded. Look, if the missus wants you to do this, that's her gamble. But it ain't gonna lead you nowhere. And don't expect support from the boys. Not even if I find Green's killer. He laughed. If you get a confession, we'll cop him. Not something the DA can thumb his nose at. Either they gotta admit 3 things. Means, how they killed Green. Opportunity, when they did it. Motivation, why'd they bother. You do that, then sure, we'll be right behind you. But there ain't nobody here looking into it. I promise. He pulled on a cap and walked out. I hurled a glare in Grant's direction, and I was still fuming as I turned down the hallway towards Shipman's office. Shipman was frowning at the stacks of paper atop his desk, but he stood up and smiled when he saw me. Glad you could make it. I asked him what he'd found. I don't know why I keep coughing. I asked him what he found on the case so far. He laughed and motioned at the paper stacks. Not in any way related to Green. Pile it under the trash now. Nobody's looking into Green's case here. I must have scowled a mean look at him because Shipman was quick to shake his head. Not that the case is dead, PC, but Captain has no one on it. Even Grant's coming off as soon as he can. We're underwater with other bunk. So you have nothing for me? Not true. Department still did a regular foxtrot. He tossed me a bench folder. Inside was a large black and white photograph of Green's face, muscles relaxed and eyes closed. It looked almost normal, apart from his flattened hat behind his head and the dirt and grass behind that. The report behind the picture noted 3 important clues. First, that Green died at midnight, the previous night. I cursed myself that I'd been so close to stopping it. Second, Green was killed with 2 .45 caliber bullets to the chest. Those slugs weren't from a pea shooter. Green was killed by a mean gun. Finally, that Green was found this morning lying in Washington Square Park. That was only a block away from the Tin Spoon. I noted each of these facts and gave the folder back to Shipman. All we got, Shipman said, laying the folder back on his desk. Can pinch the gunman if you can prove the case, but you gotta solve it without much support. Don't have time to help either, he sighed. No point coming back here until you've got your man. At least I'm on a case. At least I'm on a case, I said. That's good enough to leave me tickled pink. Shipman laughed. But listen, we need a confession on this one. Captain doesn't want to run around. Right. Grant mentioned they'd have to admit to how, why, and when they killed Green. That's it. Prove that and we'll pick them up, he said. Never been on a murder before, right? Can get tense. Just know, if you accuse someone, but can't prove anything, they'll turn like a switch. Might like you one minute, but hate you the next. Chatting with folks is your easiest route to more information, but won't get any better after you accuse someone of murder. So be careful who you accuse. Could make your case harder if you go the wrong way. Alright, I get it, I said, and I internalized it. And remember, Shipman concluded, plenty of lies out there, but you can contradict means, motive, and opportunity with any in your notes. I thanked him and walked out of his office. I stood outside the police station and went over the mantra. I had to prove means, motive, and opportunity for anyone I suspected for murder. Once I found all 3 for a single person, I'd have them licked. I started out to begin the case. Alright, this is getting exciting. So, I'm actually getting really excited about this game. I have to end this episode here because I'm running out of time. So, if you haven't already, subscribe to my channel. If you like this video, hit that like button. And if you'd like to follow me on Twitter and Instagram, I'll put the links in the description below. Until next time, my scaredy cats, bye-bye!